yeah, we were just basically introducing the topic. So this morning we want to get a little more deeper into the topic, looking more on the subtle levels, what exactly happens there. So we already said we can really see death as a journey into an unknown service situation. Because I think of this we can be sure that if we spend the rest of our life, serving the devotees, that next existence we will again be able to serve the Lord and his devotees. I mean, this is already good news, So in this life, somehow we managed to find them, and it can only get better, actually. And yeah, I like this comparison to the journey, into another situation, because, yeah, let's imagine, we are planning to fly to India, to Mayapur or something, Vrindavan. So we will meditate. Okay, in 2 weeks, I'm off to Vrindavan. Okay, in 1 week, I'm off to Vrindavan. And we meditate, we are thinking, who will we meet there? What will we do there? So the mind is actually already there. And even though our friends or family are around us saying, oh, what a shame you're leaving, maybe stay another week. But no, we want to go, the mind is already there. Only the body is here, preparing the last things, but the mind, we're already there. And this can be very nicely compared to leaving one's body, especially if we have the good fortune to get some warning, because that is really good fortune. It is a blessing to get the warning. And then we can prepare, we can intensify our meditation. And we know now is the final countdown, And of course the warning we get all the time, the hair fall out and get gray and the teeth fall out and the skin gets more saggy and wrinkly. So the warning is there, but we are just very expert also to, how do you say, to outdo the warnings. We color the hair, we put the false teeth in, all the anti-wrinkle creams, and but then when the final warning comes, so cancer, stage 4, so that's the final warning. So then if we really use that time to deeply meditate and read about the spiritual world, and I mean, we will get there later, but just as a little introduction to now, then really the mind will be there already. And even if the friends and family sit around and lament, oh, what a shame you're leaving, but no, let me go. Mind is already somewhere else, So that's why I like to compare this to this journey into an unknown situation. And I remember when my father was leaving, I accompanied him for the last week, and he was such a traveler. He traveled all around the world constantly. He came 2 times with me to Bangladesh and traveled with me there in very austere conditions for the last 20 years. Every year he went to South India, traveling all around South India with a backpack, walking stick, public transport. My God, more adventures than what I traveled. But yeah, and then when he was about to leave, I said to him, it's like sitting at the airport at the departure gate. And the plane is a little delayed, and you're sitting there waiting, And he could really relate to this because he was just constantly flying all over the planet, Even 6 months before he left his body, we met in Vrindavan, and so, yeah. So anyway, he was really very amused when I was giving him this analogy. You know, it's like sitting at the departure gate and somehow you're waiting for the plane to go and you're not quite sure where the journey goes, but you're ready for the adventure. You know? Yes. So he could really relate to that. But yeah, so this morning, let us have a look a little more deeper what is happening there. So as we mentioned yesterday, with the example of Raghava and Ratnavali, so the subtle body of mind intelligence for its ego takes the soul to the next gross body. And in Bhagavad Gita, we also have that nice example, analogy, like leaving behind the old and useless clothes, right? Also something we can all relate to. Because I mean, in my lifestyle, I'm really literally living out of a suitcase. I buy one thing, one gamsha, and I use it until it's worn out. Okay, finished. Let's get rid of it. Let's get a new one. You know, I can't have two gamshas in my suitcase. That's only room for one. You know, so I can really relate to this. You use things until it's worn out, and then you think, no need, you know. Or with a vehicle, I'm sure most of you are driving cars, you know. So it's our duty to fix it and service it and use it nicely in Krishna's service. But then this breaks down, that breaks down, another thing breaks down. You know, and all right, you fix it. But then you come to the point where you just say, it's just an old bomb. It's not worth it putting all this energy and money in it, and then this breaks down and that breaks down. So, all right, you come to the point, let's get rid of it. Useless. Let's get a new one. So, and the body is really like a vehicle, nothing else, which is given by Krishna so that we can use it to become purified. No other reason, because how can we purify the subtle body, the consciousness, if we don't have a gross body to use in service? So we need this body to engage in service and thus become purified, right? So it's our duty to maintain it nicely, you know, even though we say we are not the body. No, we are not the body, but we have one. And it's our duty to nicely take care of it. It's a gift from Krishna, you know? So it's not, oh, we are on the bodily platform because we take care of the body. But sometimes people think it's a sign of being transcendental, that, oh, I don't care for my body. But no, this is ignorance, you know? Yeah. So yeah, but then at a certain stage, you know, things fall apart. And I mean, as I mentioned yesterday, I used to work as a physiotherapist. So in our studies, we had to watch hip surgery replacements, you know. Whew, this is really like in a car workshop, you know, with drills and a hammer, and my God, you know, it's really like putting spare parts in it, you know, it really is a lot of physical work even for the surgeon, you know, yeah. It's really manual work, you know. Yeah, so very nice analogy with the old and useless clothes, you know, so that's really what it is. So, and as we said, we can only go back to Godhead when that subtle body of mind intelligence for its ego is fully transformed and spiritualized. I mean, we have been carrying this subtle body with us for so many lifetimes. So many lifetimes. So we can imagine it like a computer chip with so much information going back over so many lifetimes, you know, yeah. It's quite a task to really transform that. So all the experiences and impressions and material attachments and desires, they all have to be replaced with spiritual experiences, spiritual impressions, spiritual attachments and desires. Yeah, we have to replace them, you know. So yeah, mind, intelligence has to be transformed, and false ego has to be transformed into the real ego. So that's what I want to discuss a little bit this morning, what that means. And once we understand this, we can also see that the process of Krishna consciousness is really targeting the subtle body completely. You know, that's why Krishna always says, think of me, focus on me, remember me, never forget me, fix your mind on me. You know, this is what we hear through all the Shastras again and again and again. So, and that helps to transform the subtle body. And that's also why it is so beneficial to go to all kinds of festivals and parikramas, you know, visiting the holy places and doing retreats and seminars, you know, because all these give us some deep spiritual impressions and experiences. And as we fill our minds with these spiritual impressions, the mundane experiences of sense gratification, they fade away more and more. Yeah. So I'm sure, you know, we have some devotees here who've been in Krishna consciousness for many years. So yeah, when you maybe look at pictures from your Kami days, you know, 40 years ago or whenever, you think, oh my God, that was me, and you don't even want to know about it. And it seems like previous lifetime, isn't it? It's so far away, you know, where we were walking around in mini skirts and shorts and tight bikinis and all this. Oh my God, it's so far away, you know, far away. And we are not even so keen to remember all these things and look at these photos. I threw them all in the rubbish bin. I've you know, been there, done that. I don't want to keep them and all this, you know. So yeah, the more it seems far away, like previous lifetime, the more it means we have already done some transformational work, you know, yes. So really to transform the subtle body requires some internal work. It is not going automatically. You know, we have to really absorb ourselves. That's why, for example, it is so important to be absorbed when we serve. You know? And just very quickly, I don't want to make a big topic about that, but Varnashram, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, it's important until we have a spontaneous taste for hearing and chanting. Spontaneous taste. Then Varnashram is not so important anymore. But I mean, in our morning programs and so on, we see how many people have a spontaneous taste for hearing and chanting. Not so many, you know. So, and that's why this Varnashram is important. And in regards to Varna, I keep Varna very simple. It's just be engaged according to your nature. That's it for me. Whatever talents and nature you have, be engaged according to that. Because if we are engaged according to our nature, then it's easier for us to be absorbed, to give our heart and soul in service when we like to do things, right? And that absorption, you know, then the heart is involved and then some transformation goes on. But if we have to do something which is completely against our nature, you know, if we have to stand all day on the altar doing artis, but we would rather do some business or some garden work or something, you know, then it will be difficult for us to be absorbed, right? But in our beginning stage, it is easier to be absorbed when we do something according to our nature. And that's why we need Varnashram, actually. You know? So, and then as we become purified and we have a spontaneous taste for Shravanam Kirtanam, then it doesn't matter so much what we do. We are happy doing anything because our main pleasure and satisfaction comes from our relationship with Krishna and hearing and chanting about them. And yeah, we are happy to do this and that, and even if the result is not so fantastic, no problem, we can do it anyway, you know. But while we are more in a neophyte stage, we want to do a service where we are good at and where we get good results, you know. So, but yeah, this absorption is important. We have to give our heart and soul in service, being absorbed, and that helps to transform the mind and and spiritualize the subtle body and replace all these mundane experiences, impressions, desires, attachments with spiritual impressions, desires, attachments, and experiences. You know? Yeah, so because I always like to say, as we said, it's a journey into an unknown service situation. So, but on that flight back home, back to Godhead, luggage allowance is 0. Luggage allowance. You know, I'm flying on Wednesday, and I checked today my hand luggage allowance. There is some limit after all, so I had to take out some books of my hand luggage. Yes. So usually it's 23 kilos check-in, 7, or I have 10 kilos hand luggage. That's the usual luggage allowance when we travel, sometimes only 7 or 8 kilos hand luggage. So, but on the way back to Godhead, 0. And that's not only in the gross aspect, we have to leave everything behind, but also a subtle aspect. You know, subtle body, it all has to be dissolved and replaced and spiritualized and transformed. And that is not so easy. And we saw this, or we heard this yesterday in the example of Raghava. You know, just some little aversion there towards some Indian Mataji. That was enough. That he came back again and had, as a woman, you know, and had to work through these things. By the way, let me quickly say this. I'm not recommending to try and work out who we were in our last life. This can be very confusing. Yeah, because there's a reason why Krishna gives us this forgetfulness. Because we have enough work to do to get rid of one set of upadis, of false designations. You know? So if we get mixed up, oh, actually, I'm a brahmachari, I'm Raghava, no, I'm a woman, no, what am I actually? You know, this is very confusing for many people. And I have met devotees, of course, in one sense, we can say, you know, it's a curious, we can be curious, what were we in our last life? I'm also sometimes thinking, what was I in my last life? But better not to explore this. I have met devotees who did this, and then, oh, I was a prostitute in my last life, and oh, I was a demigod in my last life. And, you know, and it can also bring up some pride, oh, I was this and that and the other thing. You know, so better leave it alone. It doesn't matter. We've had so many lifetimes, big deal. If we know the previous one, there were millions more, you know, and better to really concentrate on how to get out of here rather than exploring and analyzing who we were in our last life. You know? So just to add that. You want to say something?
Yes, you gave yesterday different example how people left their bodies. So sense, it's better to leave your body in a more peaceful way than in this traumatic event. So you have more time to. It's better.
Of course, we cannot choose this, but let's imagine somebody will storm into the door here and say, quick, in half an hour you have to be at Frankfurt Hahn Airport, and fly out. You would be panicking. Oh my God, I've got the fridge full of stuff, and this, and I have to pay that bill, and actually my sister wanted to come next week, and and so many little things to prepare and finalize, and and you will not be ready, and it will be a pretty panicking experience, departure there. You may forget half and whatnot. But if you get that warning, so in 1 month, in 2 weeks, then okay, good. And okay, you can confront yourself and let go and plan and so on. But we will park this whole topic because that is more the afternoon today, where I want to get a bit into Sterbehilfe also, what is good, what is better, not so good, and how to approach the whole topic and give support. And also how to plan for us. Here we have quite a few people who are around 50 plus. So I do have very practical advice for this age group. But we'll park that. Let's first look here a bit more at the transformation of the soul body. So all luggage has to be thrown overboard. The more gross luggage, the most subtle luggage, we all have to leave it behind. Yes. So, I have also heard this, that just in the final dying process, we see our life like a fast-forwarded film. So a person who's been engaging in sinful activities and just big drinking parties and eating meat and slaughtering animals and whatever. So they will see like a bit of a horror film, horror movie. But then a devotee, depending on really how much we were engaged in all kinds of seva and festivals and decoration and this and that, so that's the film we will be seeing, Yes, so it's also an interesting thing. This is not really mentioned in Prabhupada's book so much, but there is some near-death experiences where people share these things, Yes. So now let me focus a little bit more on the mind, because it's quite interesting to see that actually by the power of the mind, one can hang around in a completely useless body for quite some time, just by the power of the mind. If a person wants to stay in this body, then the person will hang around. Sometimes we hear the saying that a person cannot die. Maybe you've heard that. He cannot or she cannot die. So that's the question of the mind. And also we know, if a person actually wants to leave, much quicker. Sometimes you even see that, let's say an elderly couple, husband and wife, been married for 40 years or what, 50 years. And one leaves, and shortly after the other one leaves too. Because then there's no more purpose being alone here, and what for? I've had enough. I also want to leave. And then nature prepares But if the person wants to hang around, and by the way, even dogs do that too. When the master dies, very often the dogs just go to, because they're such faithful, friends and companions, that they don't want to hang around by themselves anymore. They just stop eating and drinking and leave. So the power of the mind we cannot overestimate. Yes, very strong. And I had that experience once. I have been accompanying quite a few devotees and personalities in this final stage. And I find this a very wonderful and fascinating service. Yeah. And when I'm not so fit anymore to travel so extensively like I'm doing now, I do want to retire in Mayapur and accompany at least some devotees, maybe not all, but some devotees in this final journey. Because if you're a little off the bodily platform, you can really connect from soul to soul. And it can be a very sweet time. I experienced this with my parents and other devotees, because, when you face death, all these external things are just so unimportant, insignificant. They don't matter anymore. And that's what gives you that ability to connect from soul to soul and just the essentials. So but we have to be a little off the bodily platform. We can't be too bewildered here by the externals and seeing how the body falls apart and all that. We have to be a little beyond that. But it can be a very sweet and deep experience. And I remember, actually, he was from Kiev, from Ukraine, Bhaja Govinda. He was a young brahmachari, only 35, 38 years old. He had leukemia. And he was in South India doing some treatments. And he just came to Mayapur just for a quick visit, he thought. But then he ended up leaving his body in Mayapur. And I knew him quite well from my visits to Ukraine. He was a good Mridanga player, so he was always playing Mridanga when I was leading kirtans there. And when I saw him, I didn't even recognize him. He was just a skeleton with skin over it, so emaciated. And he was giving me this big smile, and I thought, who the hell is this? I didn't recognize him. But then I thought, this must be Bhaja Govinda. I heard that he was in Mayapur and he was sick. So then I asked him, is this Bhaja Govinda? Yes, this is Bhaja Govinda. So and I had just accompanied my father here in Germany. And I thought, okay, let me go and share a few things with him and try and help him to focus on the spiritual world. And I really made an effort, I bought this big Krishna art book, because looking at these nice BBT paintings, especially for me personally, the BBT paintings, I can see more Prabhupada in there. And Prabhupada was also guiding and correcting devotees all the time when they were painting. Oh yes, he was giving really instructions, what to do, what to change, what not to do. So, and Prabhupada was always saying, these paintings are like the windows into the spiritual world. And even though in the afternoon we talk about accompanying people, but we can mention this already now. I personally find looking at these beautiful paintings can be much easier than somebody reading the Bhagavatam to you. Because even in class, when there's a lot of reading, not so easy to listen and concentrate, isn't it? Even in an almost healthy state, what to speak of having pain and being on the verge of leaving one's body. But looking at these beautiful paintings, you can just enter these paintings and look at all the details. And I find this much easier. And I have already my favorite paintings, you know. Yes. Let's see if Krishna allows me to look at them. But yeah. So I bought this whole big, heavy Krishna art book, you know. It was quite expensive too. And every morning I was rocking up there with my Krishna art book under my arms and trying to, you know, have a look with him there at the paintings and taking his mind to the spiritual world. But he just had such willpower. He wanted to stay in this world, and he was so much in denial. You know, I said to him, Prabhu, look at yourself. You know, it's all right. You know, I can still move around and walk. You know, and my God, you know, he hadn't been eating and even drinking for quite a while, but by the power of the mind, you can stay for quite a while. You know, yeah. And then it was quite an interesting story. Then one doctor appeared on the scene. I'm not going to mention any names. He was doing some, how do you say, these treatments? No, Ayurvedic, just alternative, that's what I was looking for. He was doing some alternative treatments, was tying some bark of trees on the fingers and toes and feet and whatnot. And he came and said, Prabhu, I can save you. And Bhajagovinda, okay, here's my rescue. He started eating and drinking again. He didn't even want to look at the Krishna art book anymore. No, I'm waiting for my doctor, you know. And I was thinking, what is this? And I know the doctor. So I was actually a little upset, you know, and I was saying to him, Prabhu, why are you doing this? Let him just go, you know. Can't you see? No, devotees should not die. You know, and we had almost a bit of an argument. All right. And the whole rumor spread around Mayapur, Bhajagovinda is recovering. He's eating and drinking again. He's getting better, you know. For a few days, it looked like that. Just by the power of the mind, you know. Yes, it's amazing. But then, after a few days, it was going down again. But then, interestingly, he needed that experience to let go, you know? Yeah. Because through that experience, his last hopes for cure were smashed. And only then he was ready to accept the fact, it's time for me to go. Before he didn't. He still had this hope, I can recover, I want to stay here. And at some stage I actually asked him, Prabhu, there must be something that really keeps you in this world. You must have the feeling that you have still something important to do here. And he said, yes, I am the Bhakta leader in Kiev. Who takes care of my bhaktas? And I said to him, Prabhu, you are not the Bhakta leader in Kiev. You know, you are Dasanudas, your servant. And Krishna has already arranged some other mission for you. Just let go of the Bhakta leader and give, you know. But that gave me the realization, these upadis, false ego, we are jumping now from the mind to the false ego. I am the Bhakta leader and give. As long as we identify with these designations, they keep us here, you know. Then we think, yes, I'm the Bhakta leader. Who will take care of my bhaktas? I have to stay here. They're all waiting for me, you know. And then not so easy to let go, you know. But if we just identify with servant, I am servant. Okay, Krishna, all I want to do is serve, and you please allow me to serve. And then it's so much easier to put our life in Krishna's hands and say, okay, Krishna, I'm yours. You send me somewhere. All I want to do is serve. Right? Much easier to let go and leave. You know. But these designations, even I am mother, I am grandmother. You know, if we cannot let go of I am the grandmother, then we will want to stay here. My granddaughter is only 5. I don't know, I want to see her growing up and get married. And then, you know, yes. So these upadis, they make it difficult to let go and leave. You know, of course, eventually, I have also accompanied one person who was really hanging on to life, also in Mayapur. And if we hang on to, then leaving becomes a real struggle. And then we are just booted out of the body. You know, I've seen that too. You know, yes. I've seen that too, where one Mataji, she was fasting for almost 15 days from food and water. Even the doctors were shocked. You know, usually 4 or 5 days without water, you can't stay for much longer. But again, by the power of the mind, she was hanging around to 15 days, and the doctor was saying to me, no, she will be gone next week, don't worry, before you leave, she will be gone, because I had to go. But she left after I left. You know. So yeah, by the power of the mind, you can hang around for a long time. And I've witnessed, you know, and it was tough, you know, and basically then the system just closes down and you're booted out, you know, and then it becomes a whole massive diarrhea, you know, even though you haven't eaten for 15 days, and everything collapses, and people usually talk all kinds of nonsense and have high fever and get out, you know, yeah. So we don't want to have such a departure, you know, if possible. You know, and it is all, the mind is very instrumental. You know, I mean, we've got the example of Hiranyakashipu, you know, just by the power of the mind, he even could stay in a heap of bones covered by an anthill. He was still present there. Of course, we don't have that yogic power, but yeah, you know, I mean, looking at Bhajagovinda, you know, it was almost like a heap of bones, you know, the anthill was not there, but yeah. So the mind is so instrumental. If the mind wants to stay, it's a struggle and it drags on and on and on and on, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I realized, going back to Bhajagovinda, you know, after his health declined again, and he came to the conclusion, no, this treatment also doesn't work. So, and then he said, I understand now, Krishna wants me to leave. And the next day, evening at Guwahati, he left his body. You know? Yeah. So, and also Bhakti Tirtha Swami, you know, he also shared, he wrote one book, Die Before Dying. So the most difficult point in the whole process of leaving is actually accepting the fact that we have to leave. That's the toughest. You know, that's why he called his book Die Before Dying. Because the main part of the dying process is to accept, yes, Krishna, I know my time is up. You know, let me leave. You know. And very often we can see when people get some final terminal diagnosis, some four-stage cancer or something, very often people still struggle. They still cannot accept. They still go to this treatment and to South America to some healer, and then to Vrindavan to another healer, And very often the whole purpose of all these attempts is simply to help the person to come to that point of accepting. Our hopes have to be smashed if we can't do it without going through this whole journey there. If we are not on that platform where we can say, okay, Krishna, you've been waiting for me for so many lifetimes. Now I understand four-stage cancer. No need to do anything. Let me go to Mayapur or Vrindavan and let me focus. So not everybody can do that. Many people still have some hopes. They still want to go to this treatment, that treatment, following this diet, that diet, and. But then sooner or later, all those attempts for treatments, sooner or later, they bring us to the point where we see it doesn't matter what I try, I'm not getting better here, So that's the purpose of it, So that's why we shouldn't even interfere. If we have a friend who's got the terminal notice here, we can very carefully suggest something, but it is an individual journey. No need to interfere with people. They may need to go through that whole internal battle to come to the point, like Bhajagovinda. First I was so angry with this doctor. What is he doing? Why is he distracting him? And so, but then afterwards I realized, no, this was Krishna's arrangement. Krishna sent him just to help him to accept the fact that he has to leave. Yeah. So it was quite an interesting journey. I mean, even when we accompany people, we learn so much. Oh yes, we get so much realizations and we learn so much. And we can also lose our own fear of death when we see it's actually not such a big deal, so the mind, so powerful, So now another thing is talking about the mind. Let's talk about the pain, because often people say, I'm not so afraid of death itself, but I'm afraid of the pain that comes along with it, right? So now let's understand, pain is actually experienced on the level of the mind. Yeah. The soul doesn't experience pain. It's on the level of the mind. And now the mind functions in such a way that if the mind is absorbed in something else intensely, we will overcome the level of pain. I always like to share one little example of my own life. In my young days before Krishna consciousness, I was playing handball. And I was the goalkeeper. Because I'm tall, so I was the goalkeeper. And we did one pretty exciting match where we had to play against some other city. It was a serious thing for us, and not just practice, training, but we were having a match. And I was wearing gloves, and I broke my little finger. It's still got some lump there to the side. So yeah, when I was attempting to hold the ball, the finger broke, and it was making such a crack. Ugh, I could really feel it. It was broken for sure. But because I had gloves on, I didn't see that this finger was standing off to the side at 90 degrees angle, Yeah. And because I was so focused on the game, I continued playing with this finger for about half an hour, and I didn't feel any pain whatsoever. Yeah. And only when the game was over and we won it, and I took off my gloves, oh my God, And of course, by then, half an hour later, it was all swollen and blue and everything. And then that's when the pain set in. So painful. But before that, I didn't feel anything. Nothing. I completely forgot that the finger was broken. I was so focused. And I mean, we have other examples also. Let's say a mother, who is saving her drowning child, in the ocean or in the lake or something. She can manifest, almost superhuman powers. And even if she is maybe injured herself or whatever, she doesn't feel anything. She's just concentrating, I have to save my child, Or in other situations where somebody gets injured, and let's say two people are injured, a car accident or whatever, and still one can carry the other one to the next whatever health station there or something, even though he's also bleeding. He doesn't feel anything, he just wants to save his companion there, So this is a well-known fact, that if the mind is absorbed in any other, intensely absorbed in another topic, doesn't even have to be so transcendental. I mean, the handball match as example, just being absorbed and wanting to win the game is already enough to overcome the level of pain, So now, at the moment of death, we are tested how much we can absorb our mind in Krishna. That's the test, Yes. How much we can intensely absorb ourselves, and then we will actually conquer the platform of pain, Yes, as I said, if we can conquer the platform of pain just in a handball match, so why not remembering Krishna intensely? Because Rupa Goswami gives us, the main and foremost qualification we need to have. Greed for Krishna, lolyam. So lolyam, greed means we are intensely absorbed. We want Krishna, nothing else, but nothing can stop us from, getting the association or whatever, Yes, that's greed. Yeah, greed we have to cultivate. So if we actually have greed, lolyam for Krishna, intense desire to get out of here, to reach him, to be, in his abode, in service, so that's what we are tested in at the moment of death. Then we can also conquer the platform of pain. And in this regard, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, any of you have met him personally? You have met him, yeah. He also, yeah. Yeah, he was a pretty extraordinary personality. He also came to Ukraine. I used to meet him at the Bhakti Sangam Festival in Ukraine quite a few years ago. Can't even remember. Anybody remembers when he left his body? Which year was that? 2000 something. Yeah, I can't remember even. Anyway, his journey was, and I remember I was in Ukraine at the Bhakti Sangam Festival, and he was ringing, saying, asking his God brothers, he couldn't come to the festival because he was diagnosed with cancer. He had some little thing on his skin on the leg, some skin cancer. And he was in Bhaktivedanta hospital doing a checkup. He was checking up everything else, and the skin expert said, "Oh, what do you got there on your leg? We should have a look at that." And he said, "No, I've had that for a long time, no need." But that was skin cancer, and he didn't notice. And he only noticed it when he had tumors all over the body, in the bones and everywhere. And he rang up at the festival, and his godbrothers were talking to him, and he was saying, "Oh, what shall I do? My leg, the bones are full of cancer. Is it worthwhile amputating?" I distinctly remember he rang and asked his godbrothers, and they all said, "Well, we want you to stay here, so do whatever you can to stay." So he had his leg amputated, then his spine was full of tumors, yeah. And Radha Swami spent the last 6 weeks with him. He cancelled all his traveling and preaching, and Radha Swami, yeah. He went to Shaunagati, that's in America, farm. That's where Bhakti Tirtha Swami left. And Radha Swami cancelled everything and stayed with him, whatever time it would take. And Radha Swami, you can find it somewhere on the internet. Radha Swami gave afterwards, after he left, he gave this amazing 5-hour Sunday feast lecture in Chowpatty. You have listened to this? Yes. Where he tells all his experiences of his time with Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It's actually a long time ago, because I remember I had that on the cassette. In those days, I was traveling on Sankirtan, and my car had a cassette player, and I had that lecture on several cassettes, and I was listening to it while I was traveling on Sankirtan. So it's quite a while ago. There was no CD, DVD players and all that. We didn't have them. I mean, that lecture is really amazing. You should try and find it. It's there on the internet. And he shares how they were just deeply absorbed in reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Reading Chaitanya Charitamrita during the day, and in the evenings, kirtans. Just in a very small circle, just small. It was no public thing, just 3, 4, 5 people. And Radha Swami shares how at some point Bhakti Tirtha Swami was calling out, "We are not reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, we are entering Chaitanya Charitamrita. And life cannot be any better than this." And he was saying, "For nothing in the world, I would want to exchange my present situation with any other one. Even if you give me thousands of dollars, nothing can be better than this." And he was so blissful, even though he was in such a, emaciated condition, completely skinny, just skeleton and skin, and tumors everywhere. Bone cancer is pretty painful. He didn't feel anything. He was just in bliss. And the doctors were shocked. How is it possible that a person in such a condition, he didn't even take any morphine and painkillers and all these things. He didn't even take. No, his medicine was Shravanam Kirtanam. And he was so blissful. Of course, Radha Swami was there. That's the whole thing. Our whole life, we need good association. And especially in this last phase, we need good association. We come back to this afternoon. Yeah, so And Rana Swami gave him his undivided attention and association. And in his association, he could uplift him to this, absorption and this bliss he experienced. Yes, yes. So that's a very wonderful example how we can overcome the level of pain by being absorbed. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And that's what we are tested at the moment of death. How much can we absorb ourselves? Yeah. So now we can look at us, we may have a toothache, or we may have a bit of temperature, and we may be struggling, I can't chant my 16 rounds today. So now we should see it as an opportunity to practice being absorbed, because if we can't even chant our rounds when we have a little flu or toothache, what to speak of when we are facing death, my God. This will be a little more bewildering than just a toothache or a little temperature or something, Yeah, so obviously that's why it's good to hear all these things and understand things more deeply. So now next time when we're lying flat on our bed, then we do something, to absorb ourselves. And yeah, it works. I mean, if I may share a little bit about my own experiences, as I mentioned yesterday, I had cancer 2 times, but they were good experiences. Yes. Like second time first time was 2007, and then 10 years later, a new primary tumor was not connected. 2017. And 2017, that's when I started writing. So my first book, Spiritual Culture, I wrote while I was doing chemo. And most people, they find chemotherapy pretty torturing. But again, if we absorb our mind, because actually Shivam Swami had told me, you should write, because I established an Institute for Spiritual Culture in Mayapur. I'm giving courses there. I didn't bring any brochures. Oh, actually, I still got 2 Russian brochures. I will bring them in the afternoon. Yeah, and he had told me, you should write, and I was completely shocked. Me writing, how am I going to do that? It seemed like an impossible task for me to write a book, how would you even do it, I had no clue. But then when I got this diagnosis of cancer, I immediately realized, now is my chance, because now I can't travel. That's how I can use this time now. So, and yeah, I absorbed my mind, in writing. And not only that, every, chemo, well, I took pretty light chemos both times. My chemos were light ones, thank God, because I had a tiny little tumor, just, I couldn't feel it. It was just routine checkup. So routine checkups are not so bad. Both of my tumors were discovered with routine checkup. Because once you feel cancer, then it's too late. Routine checkup is the go. Yeah. So, and yeah, it was this tiny tumor, not spread to stage 1, And I did radical surgery, get rid of the whole thing. But still, the doctor said to me, your cells are a little aggressive, so maybe better you just do a light prophylactic chemo. And I thought, all right. It was also really Krishna's arrangement. Both times I was at Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mumbai. That's where it was discovered. I was just visiting Chowpatty. The first time I just visited Chowpatty temple. And then I thought, okay, let me visit Bhaktivedanta Hospital. Heard so many nice things about it. And I thought, okay, let me just do a little checkup. Now I'm here because I'm always traveling, and don't have time to wait for the results and all this. So So I thought, all right, let's just go through it, and they have a whole system there to check you from head to toe within 1 day through the whole works there. So I immediately, oh, there is something. 2 days later, I was on the operating table. It went all really boom, boom, boom. If I had not done that checkup, I would have come to Ukraine, traveled there. That was my goal. I had 1 week time left in India, and then was flying to Germany and then going to Ukraine for 3 months or something. So I would have not discovered it. It was really Krishna's arrangement. So, and then second time it was similar, also a routine checkup in Bhaktivedanta Hospital. Then here we go again. I've been through this already once before. Okay. And then first time I did my chemo in Melbourne. Because I joined in Australia, and I wrote some diary informing people, because I had to inform people I have to cancel all my travels and stuff. So I just started writing a diary. That was also excellent absorption. It gave me some purpose there, preaching online. Send out some diary. And then the devotees in Australia, they heard about my diary. And they invited me, they said, because I was wondering where shall I do the chemo, because I didn't want to do it in Bhaktivedanta Hospital. This was not the right place for chemo. And then, so I went to Melbourne. I did the first chemo there. And I had a very nice oncologist, very expert and intelligent. And every treatment, I was coming with a whole bag of Mahaprasadam from Radha Vallabha, beautiful Radha Krishna Jesus in Melbourne. Prabhupada installed them. And he was actually gay, I think, and single. So he had nobody to cook. So I came with all these delicacies, It was such an absorption for me, already the evening before, tomorrow is my appointment, and I was talking to the cooks, what are you going to cook, and make sure I'm getting something there for my doctor. And then in the mornings again, some Maha sweets and the Mangaladi sweets, and I went with the whole bags. And he was, Devaki, what are you bringing for me today? It was so funny. But I used every treatment as a preaching adventure, with all this Mahaprasadam. And then once I gave him a deluxe Bhagavad Gita, and we went through the verses there, Dihinus Minyatadi, and I showed him the whole changing body picture. And wow, this is profound, Devaki. And so we had a good time, And there was one funny story. I was sitting in his waiting room. And of course, I was coming with shaved head, sari, I didn't have anything else in the suitcase. So there was me sitting there in the sari with tilak, then there was a Christian nun, and then there was a Muslim lady. And it was funny. And we all had the same situation. We all had cancer, And then the time after that appointment, when I came again, that's when I brought him the Bhagavad Gita. And we were talking the whole appointment. We were just talking about Bhagavad Gita. We didn't even do anything else. But then he was saying, you remember last time when you came? And there was this Muslim lady, and the Christian nun, and you there. And he was saying, that gave me a good opportunity to see, how you three are doing. And then he was saying, and I have to say, you did the best. And then he said, it seems like being a Hare Krishna is some favorable disposition for doing chemo. And then I said, well, you may as well recommend it. And he, oh, not quite sure about that, So we had our fun, so, and he was actually saying, and I'm not saying that to glorify myself, but to glorify the process of Krishna consciousness. He was saying, I've actually never had a patient with cancer going through chemo who was so happy. I've never had that. Yeah. And that is really the glory of Krishna consciousness. Actually, this whole journey gave me an opportunity to put Krishna consciousness to a test. Yeah. Even when I was diagnosed with cancer, I remember exactly. The morning before I went into my surgery, I had surgery at 8 o'clock. Vaishnav Seva Prabhu, who was arranging the Desire Tree website. I'm sure we all know the Desire Tree website, right? Desire Tree website, Yes? A little? Well, there's anything and everything on it. So he is the person who organizes this website. He is the head surgeon in Bhaktivedanta Hospital. He did both of my surgeries. And his wife is the anesthesia lady there. Yeah, he is quite an amazing personality. Vaishnav Seva is his name. Very befitting. And yeah, what I wanted to say, so I had 8 o'clock my surgery. I was chanting all my rounds before. But I did not have this mood of praying, oh, please, Krishna, let it not be cancer, and please, let it not be spread or whatever. But my meditation was to simply put myself into Krishna's hands. Okay, Krishna, and it was not too long ago after Bhakti Tirtha Swami left. So my first journey was 2007. So he may have left 2004 or something. And that's when I started confronting myself with the whole topic of death. Hearing this 5-hour class of Radha Swami, and that's when I thought, okay, yeah, cancer not so bad to leave, and so I was contemplating the whole topic deeper. And then when I had the diagnosis, I thought, okay, looks like now it's my turn. I was somewhat almost a little ready through that whole meditation with Bhakti Tirtha Swami's journey on it. So, and that's why I simply prayed, okay, Krishna, whatever it may be, let me put my life in your hands. I'm ready to accept whatever you arrange. That was my meditation. And this made me so peaceful, so relaxed. I was actually shocked myself. I thought, how is it possible? I'm going into cancer surgery. I mean, cancer is cancer. You don't even know how you're going to get out of it, or whether you wake up again afterwards, It's all big uncertainties there. But I was so relaxed. It was amazing. I was shocked myself. I was thinking, how is it possible? But that's, again, the glory of the process of Krishna consciousness. Yes, really. And I also realized that to take shelter actually means that we are willing to give up our plans and we are ready to accept Krishna's plan. That's what it means. Because as long as we hang on to our plans and we are praying, oh, please, Krishna, fulfill my plans, we will still be in anxiety. Will he fulfill my plans or will he not? And we will be in anxiety. But if we simply let go and say, okay, Krishna, I'm ready to accept your plans, that's when we take shelter. And then we feel so peaceful. I really experienced it. It was amazing. And I realized, wow, this Krishna consciousness works. It works. You know, yes, how else can you be so peaceful and go into a whole cancer surgery? It is really by the power of Krishna consciousness, you know. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. And even through my whole journey, you know, it was actually a blissful time, you know, because if we are absorbed, you know, by feeding him with my prasadam, and I had always some little cards with me and little brochures and not so much books, but something to give to people, you know, and then the whole, yeah, that was the first time, and the second time was more the writing. Second chemo I did in Bangalore, but in South India. But that was also a good experience, since we are talking about it. That was 2017. I did it in Bangalore. There's the Apollo Hospital, which is a pretty good hospital chain. It's a private hospital. All over India you find Apollo hospitals, you know about it. And that particular hospital in Bangalore, the chief administrative head is an initiated ISKCON devotee. And that's why I went there, you know. And I asked my oncologist in Melbourne. He remembered me, of course, immediately. You know, I had been feeding him with so much prasadam. He immediately remembered me 10 years later. And I sent him all my details of my cells and, you know, reports there. And he took quite some time to advise me over email. And he gave me exactly what I should take. Even though my cells again were super aggressive, and nobody wanted to give me this medicine. They all said, this is irresponsible. You have to take something more heavy. You've got these super aggressive cells. This is ridiculous. We don't do this. So, but then because the chief was a devotee, he put me together with an oncologist who was junior, not the senior ones, because they're usually more puffed up. They want to do what they think is the best, you know. But the junior one, and then that administrative head just said to him, give her what she wants. And so he did. He was a young fellow, you know. And first meeting I had with him, I gave him a whole talk about death. I thought my oncologist should know my attitude towards death, you know. So I gave him a whole talk, you know, that death is simply a journey into an unknown service situation, and the soul leaves on the solid body, leaves the gross and useless body behind. And I gave him a whole talk. And he, with an open mouth, he was listening, and then he said, are you willing to repeat this to my colleagues? And I said, yes, for sure. Let's do a program. So throughout the whole chemo, this was, apart from writing the first book, that was my other absorption, to get this program off the ground. So, and there's nice devotees in Bangalore. I'm preaching there anyway, so people know me there and so on. So we designed a beautiful invitation card, and I planned a program only for the staff, not for the patients, only for the staff. But many of the staff, they were not Hindus, they were Muslims and Christians, South India, Christian people there. So, you know, we juggled it. We made a program of gratitude, you know, and cancer patient wants to express gratitude. And we designed a nice card, you know. You open it up and program, and the devotees helped me. So we arranged the whole program with, you know, devotees came along, buckets of prasadam, book table, japa beads, the whole thing. And I went and we planned it that it is at the end of the last chemo, you know, because chemo you take every 3 weeks or something, every 4 weeks. You have to go and get some drip there, you know. And the first week you feel pretty bad. You look really like half-dead cancer patient, and then you recover gradually. So we planned it at the last week of the last chemo, hoping that I'm reasonably in good shape. And yeah, and I went through the whole hospital, all the departments, inviting all the staff. Personally, it took me 5 hours. It was quite a bit of a challenge. I had to sometimes sit down a little bit and rest. So I went through the whole hospital, inviting them all, and people came. There was about 100 nurses and doctors. Yeah, they all came. Yeah. Then we even made a poster, put it on the board. They even announced it through the sound system there, that now please come to the auditorium upstairs. And they all came. Definitely all the people who were treating me, and you meet so many because you have different shifts and So yeah, there was about 100 people there, and people loved it. And I really gave them the source, I said, here, oncologists, you have to know the signs of the soul. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitra Vidam. So this is the topmost education. So if you want to be first-class doctor, you have to know the signs of the soul. So I gave them a whole thing. And people were impressed. People were taking books. Some people were taking beads. Everybody took prasadam. Yeah, so it was great. And some people were saying, so when is the next program? And when I came later back to Bangalore, I was saying to the devotees, let's do another program at the hospital. But yeah, we didn't do it, We didn't get it off the ground, But then when I was in my treatment there, we did, and it was great. So yeah, I mean, these are just little personal stories to show you how important the absorption is. Yes, the absorption. We have to be absorbed in some higher Krishna conscious topics, And then doing a chemo becomes a whole preaching adventure. That's how I felt. Yes. Yeah, it was, for me, it was a whole preaching adventure. And obviously, when we are absorbed, then Krishna also shows himself more, And you actually feel closer to Krishna. He shows him, he reveals himself more tangibly, And then you actually have some sweet experience there. And then when you get healthy again, then Krishna fades a little bit into the background again, because that absorption is not so intense. So all these situations we can use, for preaching, for being absorbed, and then it actually is a blissful time, and we learn so much. And I remember also when I was doing the first chemo in Melbourne, and I was always coming there with my prasadam. I mean, people were probably thinking this eccentric Hare Krishna woman thinks she has to feed everybody here, Probably, but I didn't care, And people were nice and they liked the prasadam, It was all excellent maha straight from Radha Vallabha's plate, It was good prasadam, good nice delicacies, or finger food, or nice sweet and salty things, Yes. So, but what did I want to say? Oh, yeah. Doing chemo, you get so many realizations. Usually chemo, most hospitals have a bigger room, with some kind of benches there or comfortable chairs, reclining, where you sit there and you take your drip, It takes about 3 hours or what, I can't remember. And you sit in kind of an open with a circle, that's how it was there, open. Some people have it where you have a curtain and you can close you off and you have your privacy. But in Melbourne, they had it more cool, no privacy, just open, sitting there. So, and you come every 3 or 4 weeks, I can't remember. So it means you meet the same people, Yeah. And you start talking, naturally. So I remember once I had this man behind me. Better you take a picture from the other side. Look at their faces. So I had this man behind me already with a bloated belly, that always means final stage, liver cancer. Then you accumulate all this water in the body. So and he was asking me, so how many, that's usually how the conversation starts, so how many treatments do you have to do, how many more, And that's how you start talking. And then he said, well, these treatments are hellish, but the alternative is also not very good, meaning death. And I couldn't help myself, I was just blurting out, well, we're gonna have to die sooner or later, the chemo is not gonna stop us from meeting death, Yeah, I mean, and he was completely he was completely shocked. He didn't know what to say, But yeah, this is what's going on, people think that this chemo will make you immortal. This is what people think. They're just so in illusion. They just can't confront themselves with this. Yes, so much fear, so much ignorance, no idea what's happening afterwards, Yes, yeah. And even the doctor too, even my doctor, the young fellow in Bangalore, he was always, preaching to me that actually I should take something stronger and this and that. And I said to him, you're not going to make me immortal. I'm going to have to die sooner or later. And then I could see his face changing. Some little smile came. Yeah, actually, you're right. Really? But even the doctors, this is the whole doctor mentality. It's seen as a weakness, as a failure as a doctor when the patient dies. And they think they are the big controllers who can avoid death. Yes, even in India, even there people are more religious and pious, but still, I could pick it up on my doctor, and every now and again I had to remind him, hey, death is going to come anyway. Big deal. 5 years more or less, it's going to come. Because that Melbourne oncologist, he had told me, better not to take the heavy stuff, because the risk of leaving early will only be reduced to 3 or 4%, but the toxic effect is so much worse. He was an intelligent man. He gave me that advice. Don't take this toxic stuff. This will be good enough for you. And whatever happens, happens. No use to pump yourself full of all these toxins, because your quality of life is disturbed afterwards. Yeah. But some doctors just eye on to this whole trip that they have to make the patient immortal, and it's basically the ignorance, I mean, with chemo, many people say it's all money making and all that. But my experience is it comes more from the patients. They can't say, okay, let's stop taking the chemo, no use. They are hanging on, like this man. The alternative is also not very good. So that's why I told him, well, it's going to come. Doesn't matter how many chemos we're going to take. We can't avoid death. And he was completely shocked. I could see he had never even thought about it. Yes. Yeah. And then there was this other lady too, also final stage of cancer, you could see it. Again, bloated belly. And when you do chemo, you do lose your hair, but it grows back afterwards. And it was so grotesque somehow, so sad and grotesque. She had this curly blonde wig on, she looked like a Barbie doll, and then this red cheeks, with makeup, red lipstick, so much in denial. The body is falling apart, and she has to dress up there like a Barbie doll. How sad, And it really made me appreciate what Prabhupada has given us. God, that we don't have to face death like that, in such denial with a Barbie doll wig on and all this, Yeah, so you get a few realizations going toward that. Plenty of preaching opportunities. Yeah. Yeah, and here and there in India, when I was doing Kenya, I met some people and I managed to give them a little encouragement and yes, just take shelter of the Lord. In India, you can preach like that, but Australia, not so easy, but yeah. Yeah, so, but yeah, going back to the mind. I didn't plan to share all these things, but yeah. The absorption. That's the key, yes. If we just give in to our suffering and we're just lamenting, oh, I can't do anything, well, then we will be miserable and we will not be able to conquer over this, level of pain, But with absorption, we can, and then we can be blissful. And there is even a verse, yes, in the Madhya Lila 4 in the purport, 186, 168. In the purport, Prabhupada says, an intense lover of Krishna does not care for any number of material discomforts, scarcity, impediments, or unhappiness. It is said that when one sees apparent unhappiness or distress in a perfect Vaishnava, not that I'm saying I'm perfect, it is not at all unhappiness for him. Rather, it is transcendental bliss. Well, that verse really fits for Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He looked like being in apparent unhappiness or distress. But for him, perfect Vaishnava, it was transcendental bliss because of his intense absorption. Yeah. He conquered beyond that. And that's actually what it means to be on the transcendental platform. That's what it means, Yeah. That you conquer over the seemingly apparent unhappiness and distress and suffering and one leg cut off and spine full of cancer. You conquer over that through your absorption, intense lover of Krishna. So that's what we have to practice here, to become an intense lover of Krishna, not just floating along here and doing a bit of here and there, but now we have to become intense lovers of Krishna. And then we will experience these challenges as happiness, And yeah, as I'm saying, a little glimpse of this I definitely did experience by the mercy of Prabhupada in the process of Krishna consciousness. It works, But we have to absorb the mind. That's the key. If the mind is not absorbed, in preaching and feeding people with sadhana or entering the paintings there, depending on what stage we are in our whole journey. So then the mind takes over and we're just focusing on our pain and we want morphine and all these things, Yes. Mind has to be transformed, intensely absorbed. Before we move on, Do we have any questions about this? Just that topic of transforming the mind. I will mention a few little words about the intelligence and thoughts ego, but the main chief instrument is the mind, really. So do we have some questions? Yes?
Yeah, because thank you very much. I have two questions.
Yeah, one after another, please, not at once, otherwise I can't.
You mentioned the importance of these DVT paintings.
Yeah.
Connect with the spiritual world.
Yeah.
To increase maybe the remembrance.
The absorption.
Is it better to concentrate on these DVT paintings than on paintings of or pictures of deities? I have now mostly pictures of Shri Radha of Sindhave, and so on. Is it better for the preparation of the moment of death to concentrate more on this DVT paintings than on deity pictures of deities which are important?
It's a personal thing. Is there anybody listening online? No. One person. I repeat for the online recording. So the question is in regards to, absorbing our minds through looking at pictures, BBT pictures, or looking at pictures of deities. What's better, deities or paintings? Personal thing. There's no hard and fast rules. That's why it's good to already meditate a little bit now, so we know where are our attractions. Don't leave it to the last moment. We don't know when the moment comes. So no harm to think a little bit about these things now. And when we see a nice picture of deities or paintings, so then we can say, oh yeah, I'll remember this one. I'll take a note of that one. I may want to have that when I leave or something, Personal matter.
My second question is, you said to go back to Godhead, we have to let go all of our designations. No, so I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
So I feel for myself, it's not so much so intense. This problem for me is more if you have attachment, in my case, to eating. Yeah, so if you eating. Yeah, yeah. If you got this some health challenge in my case, it's the body cannot take so much anymore, but he needs more.
Okay.
So what is if you have does this keep us away from going back to Godhead if we want to take more prasadam if we are able to that we are able to?
So again, the question is the attachment to eating, if the body cannot digest so much anymore, but we still desire to eat more. I actually would like to park this question a little bit because we come up to that point, we get back to that point in the Vanapasta discussion. Yeah. But one other comment just comes to me in regards to paintings in deities. I think at this point where we may be absorbed in worshipping deities, we may find it more helpful. We have our favorite deities. For example, for me also when I chant, I have on my computer a few nice pictures if I'm not in a temple situation and I cannot chant here in front of Prabhupada, so then I like to look at some pictures on my computer. And they're also deities. But this is just a personal comment, when we are actually really preparing to leave, then these windows into the spiritual world may be, for some people, more helpful. Because in the spiritual world, we're not going to worship deities.
I feel also connected to the spiritual world when I look at Shri Radha einmal
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought maybe it keeps a little more connected to look at our Abenteuer.
Yes, it's a pretty subtle point, you know, because in Goloka Vrindavan we're not going to worship deities. We're going to actually be there with Radharani and Madan Mohan and the gopis, hopefully, and the cows and the cowherd boys and whatever, you know. But yeah, so this is the subtle difference, you know. Yes. Even seeing nice pictures of the nature in the spiritual world, you know. Like there's one picture where Krishna and Balaram come with the cowherd boys and the cows, and you see all the nice trees and lakes and all this, you know. So yeah, you can almost enter these paintings, you know, within your mind, you know. So that's why for me, personally, I imagine when I'm really preparing more to leave and when Krishna gives me the facility to look at pictures, we never know how it all goes, you know, I'd rather look at paintings than at deities. You know, but now when I chant japa, well, I also like to look at paintings too, actually, but I don't have them on my computer, but sometimes I see some in a flat or something, and then I go to the paintings and, you know, chant in front of the paintings.
Is Govardhan Hill is also the spiritual world, or is it only part of the Govardhan?
No, as far as I know, I've never thought about it, but it should be there because it's such a popular grazing place for the cows, and you know, the cowherd boys sporting around there and the caves and this and that. I mean, I couldn't imagine the spiritual world without Govardhan Hill, you know. He's the best of all devotees and offers all these beautiful places. Yes?
Telling this intense situation of facing death, then it's obviously easier to be absorbed in Krishna, whatever, pastimes, etc., and Krishna consciousness. But if you're not, just if you want to prepare, you have a normal situation, you're still healthy. Are there any strategies to practice this kind of intensity?
Okay. So question is, if we're facing death, it may be easier to be intensely absorbed, but when we are healthy, not so easy. Well, I dare say it may also not be so easy to be absorbed when we are facing death if we have not served with intense absorption. Yeah. Because we may think it is easier, but if we have not cultivated this intense absorption, and I'm only realizing this now where you're asking the questions actually, so I'm also learning at every session something new. You know, yeah, I dare say if you have not cultivated this intense absorption, you will not be able to absorb yourself. And we often see this too, you know, how devotees become more absorbed in their bodily situation. And they find it even a struggle to chant, because also physically it gets more difficult and all that. So yeah, I don't agree with that, you know. I think that's maybe one of the main reasons why we should practice our devotional service also with intense absorption. And it's a good, you know, key to success. It's always has been my motto, you know, to intensely absorb myself. Making so many plans, even if half the plans don't even manifest, doesn't matter, because you get the benefit of absorbing your mind. Of course, we should not just make lofty plans which never ever manifest or something. But just thinking back in my married life when we started the temple in Riga, we were intensely absorbed. How to ever get it off the ground? And half of the big plans and absorption never manifested, but the other half manifested. And we got the benefit of being absorbed. And it's ecstatic if the mind is absorbed. And there's even a verse in the Bhagavatam where it says, that when we are intensely absorbed, the analogy is given of a river flowing into the ocean. And when the high tide, the Flut, high tide is coming, then actually the waves of the ocean are going into the river, right? And the analogy is, in the high tide, the waves of the ocean are bigger than the little waves of the river underneath. And therefore, the waves of the ocean are compared to the absorption which overflood the stagnant little waves of the river which are standing for the material desires. Sex desire. As long as we have the body, it's always somewhere there, maybe not gross, but subtle, whatever, But through that intense absorption, then the waves of the absorption simply flood those little stagnant waves of material desires, and therefore they're not noticed. So absorption is always the key to advancement and also the key to pleasure, because even in a material sense, the planning of the sense gratification, that's where the joy lies for a non-devotee. Planning it all. Planning to meet this man, this woman, and how it will all be, and what I will do and what he will do, and blah, 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 blah. Or planning to go to Australia, or what you can all enjoy there, and then when we actually go there, it will even not be as pleasurable as you experienced it in the planning stage. So the planning always, because enjoyment is happening on the level of the mind, right? Yes. So, the whole planning gives pleasure for a materialist, and then it ends up in disappointment. But the same thing is there in Krishna consciousness too. So if we actually plan, absorb our minds in making plans how we can make a contribution to Prabhupada's mission, then the stagnant little waves of material desires, they will not have a chance to do anything, because the head is full of plans how to serve Prabhupada and Guru and the Vaishnavas, Yeah. So I dare say this is why it is important to invite this mood of intense absorption. In whatever way it may be. There's no hard and fast way rules, it doesn't have to be in preaching or something. Even when we dress the deities, I remember I used to be a lot on the altar in my early days of Krishna consciousness. Again, it was for me a whole big absorption. I was already getting everything out the evening before, and then it entered all my dreams. I was dreaming how I will do the turban for Krishna and everything, because I had it all taken out and already meditated, so you experience a much higher pleasure if we do this with absorption, rather than quickly in the morning, okay, quick, it's time already, it's late, and boom, 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 So then we will not get that same bliss and joy, rather than doing things with intense absorption, or cooking something, So if we really prepare and meditate, and okay, I make this and that, and maybe this time like that, and and already cooking something ahead and doing the shopping and, you know. I remember cooking also for, yeah, I had a few gurus. So for my gurus at the time, it was intense absorption. In India I was cooking, I was coming with all this stuff from the West and I was boiling up cherries, and in those early days you could take liquids in the hand luggage. Nobody was weighing it, so I had some 20 kilos hand luggage there full of delicacies from the West, all kinds of crazy things. So yeah, whatever we do, doesn't matter what we do, intense absorption is the key. And then we are so in the habit of living like this that, of course, if we have to do a chemo or something, we will do the same thing there, intense absorption, somehow preaching, and. So we have to kind of cultivate that habit of serving with intense absorption, no matter what. Even a mother with kids, so be absorbed. How you can, attract your children to Krishna consciousness, how you can engage them, how you can create Goloka Vrindavan there in your home, and swing deities and collect things in nature and decorate the altar. And there's so many things to do with kids. So the principle is intense absorption, doesn't matter what. Right? Yes. Yeah. Can be in anything, whatever we do. Yeah. Is there any other question? Anything? Yes.
Question or the thinking about
Yeah.
intense absorption. Somehow, we can try as much as we can, but still there is a part of Krishna's mercy. We are allowed to succeed.
Sorry. In regard, so the question is, yes, intense absorption we can try, but ultimately we need Krishna's mercy. Well, in regards to absorption, I dare say it is pretty much in our hands. Yeah. Whether the plans manifest, that is ultimately up to Krishna. I mean, this is also why book distribution is such an ecstatic service, because you can only survive on the street if you are absorbed, and by that absorption you conquer over the three modes. And then if people say, oh, get out of my way, I've met you guys before, you don't get affected by that. You say, okay, I wish you a nice day, and you just cruise on, But if you're not intensely absorbed, and of course good japa also has to be there in regards to book distribution, then you're just knocked around by the three modes of nature, and you will just succumb the three modes, Yes. So, see, the point is the mind likes to make plans by nature. That's the function of the mind. And we have two choices: to make plans for sense gratification or to make plans for Krishna's and Guru's and the Vaishnava's pleasure. So, and that choice is ours. And non-devotees are intensely absorbed in making plans for sense gratification and where to go on the holiday and how to enjoy best and this and that, especially summertime. That's why often in summer the temples are empty, because even amongst us devotees, we're all thinking how to enjoy the summer period here, But there's, of course, also some Krishna conscious ways of going to Rath Yatras and all that. But still, So it is just the basic function and nature of the mind to make plans. And it's up to us to choose what kind of absorption we want to invite in our life. And again, of course, everything in Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. You know? We don't want to try and artificially jump here to, I don't want to go swimming, I only want to be absorbed in serving Radha Madam or what. You know, so it has to be gradually cultivated, you know, without some fanatic jumping higher than we can artificially or something, you know. Yes. It has to be gradually cultivated, that whatever we do, we give our heart and soul, you know, and only that kind of service mood actually transforms the heart. Only if we give our heart in service, if we just serve with minimal effort, then the heart is not involved, and then it will not transform the heart. It's very simple, you know. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives these 3 levels of attentiveness in chanting, you know. He says inattentiveness on the level of the body, he calls it laziness. Inattentiveness on the level of the mind is distraction. Inattentiveness on the level of the heart, he calls it indifference. In Deutsch Gleichgültigkeit. So if we serve or practice Krishna consciousness in Gleichgültigkeit, in indifference, then the heart is not involved and it will not transform the heart. Because bhakti is all about transforming the heart. And the heart has to be involved in order to be transformed. You know? So we cannot serve with Gleichgültigkeit, indifference. Okay, so I can take it or leave it. Okay, minimal effort, just so I can take my lunch there and I don't have to pay or whatever. You know? So that kind of service mood will not lead to bhakti. You know? And that choice is ours. That choice is ours, I dare say. But then the result on book distribution, that's up to Krishna. You know? That's up to Krishna. And we have the example, Mother Yashoda trying to bind Krishna. So she did intense efforts. She didn't give up. You know, she could have said, oh, looks like my son is some magic yogi here. Doesn't matter how much rope I tie together, it's always too short. So let's just give up. But no, she didn't give up. Intense absorption. Where can I get more rope? Bring all the rope of the whole area here. Let's tie up Krishna, you know. So, and that attracted Krishna's mercy, you know. So our absorption, that will attract Krishna's mercy. But if we serve with indifference, it will not attract, you know. And most likely we will have a tough time absorbing ourselves when we face some calamity. I've seen it. You know, I've seen how devotees just, you know, fall into some depression and vacuum, you know, when they face some serious health crisis and stuff, you know. Any other question?
Could you please repeat what was the last of this indifference is chanting on the level of the...
No. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives these 3 levels of inattentiveness in regards to chanting. And these 3 levels of inattentiveness we can actually see in every way of serving. Not only in chanting, even in hearing, in cleaning the floor, dressing the dishes, cooking, whatever we do, we should do things with attentiveness on these 3 levels. Body, mind, and heart. And the heart, yes. And the inattentiveness on the level of the heart, he calls indifference, Gleichgültigkeit. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Is this all a little much to you, or not? It's okay, is it? Not too intense, because we've been talking for 2 hours or something, But I mean, there was a lot of stories which makes it a little more lighter, not just all dry philosophy or something, but all applied Krishna consciousness. Well, if we don't have anything else now, I do want to just finish off this section of transforming the mind, intelligence, thoughts, ego. We have spent a lot of time on the mind, and the mind is really the chief instrument. And we were making this point, it is by the power of the mind we can hang around for a long time. Or by the power of the mind we can also put ourselves in Krishna's hands and very smoothly leave, Yes. So when we manage to put ourselves in Krishna's hands, then our departure can be very smooth, But if the mind hangs on and we want to stay, it can be a struggle like anything. Even amongst devotees, I've seen it. Until we are booted out. The body just folds up and closes down and woof, get out. Yes, so and then the departure is not so nice. Yeah. So it is so much dependent on the mind. But let me say a few little words just to, for the completion's sake, a few little words about transforming the intelligence, because subtle body, the topic is to go back to Goddess, we have to transform the subtle body of mind, intelligence, thoughts, ego. And if there are some material aspects still there, then we will have to come back and continue with this transformational journey. So we've talked in depth about the mind, replacing all the mundane impressions and experiences, desires, attachments with spiritual impressions, experiences, and. So now what about intelligence? What does it mean to transform the intelligence? Does it mean, whatever we learned at university is all nonsense and we just forget about it? No, it doesn't mean that. Transforming the intelligence means that we see behind all knowledge and everything, we see Krishna as the source of it, Krishna as being the creator, Krishna as being the controller, Krishna as being the supreme enjoyer. That we connect everything with Krishna behind it. That's what it means to transform the intelligence. Like, for example, some very highly intelligent professor at the university, his intelligence is all 0, 0, 0, because he has no clue about Krishna being behind everything. That's why Prabhupada always says, without Krishna it's all 0, 0, 0, and then we add Krishna is the 1 in front of the zeros, and the 0, 0, 0 becomes, 10 million or what, Yeah. And a nice little story illustrating the transformation of the intelligence, a little Prabhupada story. Prabhupada was flying to Australia, I think it was, and he stopped over somewhere in Malaysia. And he was a little tired and had a headache. So he asked Chutakirti Prabhu to give him an orange. So, and Chutakirti Prabhu, prepared the orange and offered it to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada was saying, just see, Krishna created this orange, so beautifully packaged in this airtight peel, nice attractive orange color, so juicy and tasty. Isn't Krishna amazing? So this is a little example of what it means to spiritualize our intelligence, that even behind an orange, we see Krishna behind it. Isn't he amazing? Marveling, what genius packaging, or even banana, we eat a banana, or I eat a banana every morning. So we can look at a banana, wow, isn't Krishna amazing? This perfect packaging, we'll just peel it off, and here we are biting into a banana. It's so perfect, such nice flavor, if they're ripened properly. And I was recently in Mauritius. There I tasted a real banana, because they were ripening there on the plant, it's a bit different from what we are getting here, So yeah, but behind everything we can marvel, seeing Krishna behind it, how he created all these things, and it's all so perfect and attractive, and he being the amazing, source of everything. So that's how we spiritualize our intelligence, So the highly intelligent professor at the university, he has no clue. So his intelligence actually is zero. But then an illiterate village woman in South India who can't even read or write, she may have so much spiritual intelligence because she says, yes, of course Krishna is God. Of course, and yes, if you can put a whole banyan tree and a little seed, then of course, like the cobbler, of course he can also put an elephant through the eye of a needle. Why not? He can do anything. Of course, he is my supreme Lord. He can do anything and everything. So that is spiritual intelligence. It actually has nothing to do even with material intelligence. And often our material intelligence can be in the way, because we try and understand Krishna through our intelligence, but we're not getting very far there, only with spiritual intelligence. So basically, in a nutshell, this is what it means to transform the intelligence, that we can really see Krishna behind everything. And that comes, of course, through reading Prabhupada's books, Shravanam, getting spiritual knowledge, and Kirtanam, chanting, then Krishna reveals. Also through our service attitude, Krishna reveals himself. We get realizations. Realizations don't come just by sitting and studying 5 hours. No, that the studying is only meant to bring us to a surrendered service attitude. And the service attitude attracts Krishna, and then he reveals himself. Yes. So that, very briefly in a nutshell, this is what it means to transform the intelligence. Now, transforming false ego, usually when I talk about that, I tell this story with Bhaja Govinda saying, I'm the Bhakta leader in Kiev. So all these designations, we have to dissolve them. Our only designation should be Jiva Srupa Krishna Nityadas. I am eternal servant. And with the story with Bhaja Govinda illustrates, if we are identifying with being servant, then it's so much easier to put ourselves in Krishna's hand and say, okay, all I want to do is serve. So you please decide where I continue serving. So much easier. But if we think I'm the grandmother or I'm the Bhakta leader in Kiev, then that keeps us in this world. Yes, yeah. that keeps us in this world. Yeah, I mean, false ego is a whole separate topic. As you know, I have a book on this. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of good stuff. And actually, in the false ego book, I'm also sharing things about death. Yeah, there's a whole section on old age and disease, how this is the final, the false ego gets crushed into pieces through this whole journey of, your body, you lose control. The false ego likes to control. And then old age, more and more we are losing control. We can't do this, we can't do that. And then we get incontinent, can't even control our urine, have to wear nappies. Oh my God, this is all crushing for the false ego, like anything. So there's a whole section on that also in the false ego. I'm also sharing some stories from my father, how I accompanied him. So it is, all these topics are connected, but yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there is more to say about false ego, but yeah, I'm not sure whether we want to start with this now, 20 past 1, I think it will be. But there was one quote, maybe. Let me see if I think I have. Oh yeah, hang on, let me just read this. This is Bhagavatam 11:7-6. Now you should completely give up all attachment to your personal friends and relatives and fix your mind on me. Thus, being always conscious of me, you should observe all things with equal vision and wander throughout the earth. So ultimately, because sometimes we are not clear in this either, that actually, as we said yesterday, we have to remember Krishna alone. So that means also we have to give up our attachment to our personal friends, even though they may be also nice devotees. But we have to withdraw, we have to let go of all these attachments. Our relationship with Krishna has to be the most important one. Relatives, friends, we have to let go of it all. Yes. There was also one more which I wanted to share. I'm not sure. Hang on. Where is it? Oh, yeah, here. This is 5:11:15. When one's mind is absorbed in the material conception, he thinks that he belongs to a particular nation, family, country, or creed. These are all called upadis, designations, and one has to become freed from them. As long as one is not freed, he has to continue conditioned life in material existence. The human form of life is meant for cleansing away these misconceptions. If this is not done, one has to repeat the cycle of birth and death, and thus suffer all material conditions. Pretty strong, pretty clear, Yeah. So all these upadis, they have to be given up, Yeah.
So she cannot imagine how can we be free of all upadhis and not identify ourselves with anything. If okay, we can even if in temple we are attached to services and to deities, and how to become zero from all upadhis.
Yeah, big topic, lifetime journey. I've got a whole 15-hour seminar on the fourth ego. Didn't you get the book yesterday, fourth ego book? You didn't? Well, maybe get it. Yeah, I cannot answer this in 5 minutes. But in the afternoon session, I do want to start the afternoon session with one main and foremost way how we dissolve the fourth ego. So please come back at 4 o'clock. We will start with that and then do so many other things. But see, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is targeting that point actually, to become free from the fourth ego. And there's so many aspects to it, so many. There's so many rules of Vaishnav etiquette and culture, which unfortunately, especially here in the Western world, we don't even know, we don't follow them, But yeah, there's so many things. The chanting is a big one, but the serving in association of senior devotees under their guidance in a humble mood, and yeah, gradually we realize Jiva Svupara Krishna Nitya Das. So it's not that we don't identify with anything, but we identify with servant, because that's our true identification. We are servant, So, and in some phase of our life, we serve as a mother, we serve as a wife, but even the I am the mother, we have to let go of this when the kids are 15, 16. We can't continue controlling them and instructing them and correcting them. This is what we were doing as mother, but then we have to take off this I am the mother's hat, and we have to put on another hat. I'm the friend. And we have to treat our children like a friend, like we treat other friends with respect for their, desires and moods, and we can't just continue, and we can see how difficult this is for many mothers. Even when the son is 45, they still, harass him and tell him what to do and what not to do and instruct him and all this, yes. So we have to let go of these things. But yeah, it's a too big topic to bring this into the seminar. But there is the book. Yes, in Russian. All right. So I think, I've loaded you up with quite a bit of stuff here. And once again, in the death book, all these things are in there, and so much more which we didn't have time for, and we will not have time for, because there's so much to talk about. Yeah, so if you want to get any books, then please see me. Also, I have to maybe let you know that tomorrow after the morning session, Mataji actually takes all the books that are left, she takes them back to Cologne, because I can't carry them. I have put aside the books I'm taking to Moldova on Wednesday when I fly, but I can't carry more, and I can't keep them here just in case some of you want some books on Sunday after the Sunday feast or something. So whatever books you want to get, please get them at the latest tomorrow at 10. Tomorrow the morning session is 8 to 10. And then 12 o'clock she leaves. And I have to give her all the books because otherwise, I mean, if there's people who are not here now, I can also take orders and I can send them. But, at least for those who are here, because sometimes people leave it to the last minute. They think, oh yeah, Monday evening, we still have the Russian speaking program. I can get it then. But no, then I have to send them. And then it will be again extra expense and all of this, So whatever books you may want to get, please get them today or at the latest by 10 o'clock tomorrow. Okay. All right, so we'll meet back here again at 4 o'clock. So please come back. Thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada.